Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night from where or when you're watching this video. This is John from IT Skills Academy, and I'm super excited today to welcome you to my channel. Thanks for choosing to run with IT Skills Academy. We continue creating the inventory management system. This is episode 13. If you're watching this video for the first time, I highly recommend that you watch the previous 12 episodes in this how to create an inventory management system, so that you can easily follow along, and then later you can come to this. But still, in case you're going to run some PHP, if you choose to continue to watch this video without watching the previous episodes. But if you are or if you want to run how to create an inventory management system, then I would highly recommend that you watch the previous episodes and then come to this, so that you can easily run how we did this. So having said that, in the previous episode, that is episode 12, I explained that in this pose.php, what we are doing is that we are inserting data into a table called sales order. This will hold the products which clients have shown interest in buying, and we are also inserting the same information into the sales once the clients confirm that they are going to pay for the selected products. So in the previous episode, we inserted the products into the sales order. So where a client will choose a product, say onions, select how many they want to buy, and then insert that into the cart. So now what we want to do is to display those items which clients have shown interest in buying in this table here, so like in the cart. So after that, now we'll save that information into the sales table and then continue to the checkout to do the payments. And then thereafter we can get a receipt or something. Okay, so in this episode now, basically what we'll be doing is first of all fetching the information and displaying it here, and we'll also be inserting the same information into the database, and I'll also be showing you how we can be able to delete an item just in case the client is no more interested in buying that product. Alright, so hoping that that is clear, let's head on and now do this. Alright, so heading to the Visual Studio, and this is the post.php, so it's the page that we have just seen. And right now I'm in the cart, so basically that table that we have just seen there. And the first thing that we want to do here is to basically fetch the information. Alright, so what we are going to do now, we're going to write the PHP script that will help us to fetch that the cart product. So as usual, I'm just going to come here and create all right. So as usual, we are going to have the PHP opening and closing tags here. And the first thing that I would like to do is to connect to the database. That is very, very important. So I just want to check and see where my database connection is. But I hope this should be in an includes folder. Right, yeah, so we have it in the includes folder, con.php. So that's the first thing that would like to do here. So we're just going to come and say require, and we'll require the con.php, which is basically a script that helps us to connect to the database. So includes con.php. So that is very, very important, otherwise you're going to run into problems. Right, so now down here we now can write the script to fetch the information. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable, call it SQL, and here we are going to set it to be equal to select and we'll be selecting all. So we're going to put an asterisk. That means that we are selecting all the information, and we are selecting this information from a table called sales. Alright, so we don't have any other condition, so that is done. So now down here we now want to first of all create the MySQL query, so that will help to see that the SQL statement or the select statement is successful, and also the connection to the database is also successful. So for that we are going to come and create a variable here and call it results, and we're going to set that to be equal to mysqli underscore query, and these will have the parameters. It will accept two parameters, and one of it will be con and the other one will be SQL. Alright, so after that we are going to check if that returned true, and it will only continue if it returns true, otherwise we can terminate the code at that point. So for that we're going to create a if statement, or an if statement, and the condition will be if res is equal true. So notice that we are saying equal and not just equals. So we are not setting the rest to be equal to true. We are just like trying to match the two, and it's only when they match that we continue with the code, as compared to res is equals to true, where we are assigning the res variable to true, which is not what we want. We want to like match the two and only continue if they match. That's why we are putting the double equals. So if that is true, then we want to continue and count the number of rows. So that is, if it returned true, then we can count the number of rows. So for that we are going to come and say count, and to count the number of rows we use the mysqli underscore num underscore rows, and this will accept one parameter, and that is res, or results, short for result. Alright, so after that now we're going to have a nested if statement. So down here we're going to have yet another if statement, and this one, its condition will be if the count, in fact this one should be a variable, so that we come and use it here. So here we're going to say that if the variable count is greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, then what this means is that we have some data in this table. We have some data in this table. So for that now we can continue now to fetch the information, and we'll be fetching the information using the mysqli fetch sort. So if it is less than 0, it means we don't have any data, and so we are going like to sort of tell the person, the user, that we don't have any records. So for this one we're going to come and use the while loop. So while and the while loop will accept these parameters, or the parameters will be low. You can even just say low, and you can say or set that to be equal to mysqli underscore a sock. So this is some sort of an associative array. So mysqli underscore sock underscore fetch, mysql fetch a sock. Which is the order? mysql a sock fetch? No, should be mysqli fetch a sock. Yeah, it should be like that. I think some time back this was array or something. Yeah, and this one will accept a parameter or one parameter, and the parameter is res, or the result, whatever we have on top here. So now basically what this does is that it will go through the whole table and fetch all the information in that specific table. Yeah, so it will like loop through the whole table and fetch all the information. Hope you understand the loops. Alright, so if that is the case, now we can add down or within the while loop, within the curly brackets here, we can now come and create some variables and store the information that we have now in this specific variable here. So we have all the records in this variable here, and so now let me just show you how we go about getting that information from that variable. So the first thing that we want to get is the ID. So we're going to create a variable called ID and set that to be equal to the variable row, and then we're going to have a square bracket, and in single quotes we're going to have that specific row or column value, that is ID. So basically now we are getting the ID and storing it in this variable. So how we are getting it is because we already have it in this specific row, and we just need to specify the column. We just need to specify the column. So in this case we are getting all the values in the column ID. Alright, so now because we don't just want the ID, in fact we want the invoice number, we want the product name, we want the quantity, we also want the price, and we want the amount. So if I can maybe just show you the table itself. So I'm just rushing to phpMyAdmin in the inventory database, and we're going to the sales order table. And as you can see in the sales order table, we have the columns transaction ID, invoice, product name, image, quantity, amount, price, date, and status. So in fact we need to change this. As you can see here, we have just said the column ID, so this one will have us with an error. So this one should be transaction ID. Yeah, so now we also want to get the invoice, the product name, the quantity, the amount, the price, and all that. So I'm just going to come and duplicate this just to save us a few seconds. So that will be the product name or the invoice, the product name, the quantity, the price, and the amount. Alright, so we can now come and rename this. So this one should be the invoice, and this one is products name. So products underscore name. So the column products underscore name. It's also recommended that you do copy paste just to avoid typos. here we also want to get the the quantity. Let me see how we have the quantity. All right, quantity. So the quantity there. We also want to get the price. We also want to get the price. So price and amount. Alright, so I think that's all that we need to get from this table. You can also get the date if you want, but I don't think it's important. If it is important from your end, then you can just have it there. So now having that there, it now means that we can now be able to display it here. So we're just going to basically echo it. So, and for that, what we are going to do is within our PHP, we are going to embed this HTML code here. And the way we do that is just below that, we come and sort of terminate or have the PHP closing tag, and we also down that immediately open the PHP tag, so that now at the end of it you have these curly brackets within the PHP tags, and you also have this script for fetching the data again within the PHP tag. So that now means our HTML code will not be within the PHP tags, because that's sort of not recommended, or if you're going to have it, you need to have it in another special way. Yeah, but for this one we just want to have the PHP the HTML code embedded within the PHP script, but not necessarily within the PHP tags. So it might be difficult to explain, and for that maybe let me just do it practically. So I will just come and grab the table row, this one here, because this is now where we want to have the information displayed, and that one now we're going to come and embed it here. Yeah, so I just want to so we're just going to come and embed it here. So we'll just come and paste that there. So Control V, and we have that information there. So even now without sorry, we need to right, something is missing. Where is that? Alright, yeah, we have it here. Let me just push it up to that point. Alright, yeah, that makes sense. And can also push the whole of this inside the retro. Alright, somewhere. Oh, alright, let's just have it there. So now if even without doing anything else, if we now head on to our post you'll now notice that there is some improvement. Now we are getting two records, although they are similar records, but this is showing us that in the sales order we at least have two records. So the only thing that we now need to do is to modify it a little bit, such that now we have the specific records, and also don't forget we also need to get the total down here, something that I'll just be showing you in a second. Alright, so let's just first of all get the real information here. So for that we're just going to go to the HTML code that you've just embedded, and we're just going to come here and replace that, and we'll have the PHP opening and closing tags. So PHP, and basically here we just come and echo, and here because we want the invoice, and remember we stored the invoice number that we collected from the database, we stored it in this variable invoice. So here we are going to come and echo the variable invoice. Yeah, just that. And now we're going to copy that because we want the same in these other columns here. So I'll just come and paste that there. And now after that, we're just now going to replace what we are echoing. So here we are going to come and replace these with product name, and it's good to copy it. Let me practice what I'm preaching. So instead of typing it, let me just copy paste it, just to avoid typos that may lead us to errors. Yeah, and also this one should also change just before we forget, because we'll be using this to insert this information into the database. Although this is something that we're going to do later, let's just have the match at this point. So I'm just copy pasting so that I don't have any typos. Alright, so we are done with that. So if I now head on to the browser and refresh, as you can now see, we have the invoice number, the product, the quantity, the price, and the amount being displayed here very well. So if I come and add another product, say I come and add some let me come and add product 24 here, which has a price, some purple cabbage, whatever it is called. So we can come and maybe buy like 4 of them and add that to cart. Yeah, and as you can see now, we have the product 24. I've purchased 4 of them, each at 200, and I'm expected to pay 800. Alright, so now after that, we can now down here echo the total, and it will be the sum of this. So the way we can do that is we can just within our PHP script on top here, just going to come and have it down here. And so PHP opening and closing tags as usual. Now within the quotes, I will have now the SQL. So SQL, and we're going to set that to be equal to what? You guessed it right, select all. Oh sorry, select sum. Select sum into brackets amount. So the reason as to why I'm putting amount is because we are summing the column amount. So I'm just heading to the database so that I can show you that, and so that it is clear. Moving forward. So what we want to get is the sum of this. So that's why we are saying select sum as amount, and we're also going to come and say as amount. So as that column as amount, and this will be where the invoice is equals to the invoice. invoice. Yeah, so basically like that. So yeah, this is because in this table we're going to have several products, and we may want to just get the sum of the products for a specific client. So we don't want to get the sum of all the products that have been purchased. So where the invoice is, that hope that that one will go well. So now down here we are going to have the MySQL query. So for that we are going to create a variable called results, short form res, and we're going to have the mysqli. So mysqli underscore query, and this as usual accepts two parameters, that is the connection to the database and the SQL. Right, just to avoid some confusion, we can just have this as SQLI. Yeah, alright, because we have another variable called SQL. I think there might be some conflict or something. Let's just be safe and have it like that. And then now finally we are going to create a variable called data, and that's and this one will be equal to, we now want to get the what, we now want to get the information. So we're going to come and say mysqli underscore fetch underscore sock, and this one will be blah, 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 blah. Okay, it will accept one parameter, and that is less. So the results, and that's it. So now we have the sum being stored in this variable called data. And so now to be able to get the total, we're going to go down here, so where we have this, and this is how you're going to get this total. So PHP opening and closing tags, and here we're going to come and echo the variable data, and just to like convert it to a value or something, we're going to have some square brackets, and in single quotes we're going to come and have amount. Yeah, just have it like that. That will have you echo the sum on top here. So let's see how that. Alright, we are getting an error here. MySQLi fetch a sock expect parameter 1 to be MySQLi results, boolean given. Alright, so if we get back here and looking at this select statement, what do you think is the problem with this statement? So we can just take a few seconds and try to fix this error. So if you're able to fix this error, let me know in the comment section below. So we are taking a second for you to try and figure out the problem here. Right, so hope that that went on well. So the problem with this select statement is we have not told it from where it will fetch this information. So I think that should be that should fix the problem. So we need to come and say from sales underscore order, where the invoice is that. Okay, so let's now try to refresh and see if that fixes the problem. Yeah, so we have an answer, but I doubt the answer. This is not correct, because if it were to go with where the invoice number is a specific invoice number, I think it is just collecting these and ignoring these two. So let me just try and pretend that I'm a new client. So I'll go back to the dashboard here and I'll start a new transaction. Remember, it is when you start a new transaction that you can be able, so it is from the sales that you are getting the invoice number. So let me just click on this. So when I click on this, I'm moving with a specific invoice number, as you can see on top here. So it also now means that we also need to put a condition here, because we don't want to show this client the details of the previous client or the details of another client. So we also want to be specific on the products that we are showing here to be based on this specific client. So the results that we are getting here should be based on this invoice number that we are seeing here. So let me just head on to the Visual Studio Code here, and we now need to come and say in the select statement we need to come and say where the invoice number is equals to that. So well, if you clearly remember, we are able to get the invoice number. So once you click the sales button, we create an invoice number and pass that through the link. And so in the post.php page, we are able to, through the get method, store the invoice number, so or get the invoice number and store it in a variable called inv, short for invoice. And so now we can now come and try to reuse or use that variable here, so that now instead of selecting all from the sales order, we can come here and add a condition to say where invoice is equals the variable ivn. Should it be ivn or inv? So let me just confirm the name of that variable on top here. Yeah, inv. Alright, so inv, so that is correct. So let us now try. Okay, we have a typo here. This should be invoice. Alright, so after refreshing that, we are able to successfully get rid of the data, but on line 250 we have undefined invoice. Let's try fix that. 250. Okay, so let's just try to reuse that variable again here. So let's just use the inv. So I refresh that, and now as you can see, we don't have any data based on this invoice number. So I had to go back to the dashboard and start the transaction again. That is why I have a different invoice number here. So remember, when you click on the sales in the dashboard, a different invoice number is created. So I had restarted that again, so we have a different invoice number. And the other change that we have done is when selecting the sum of the amount, we are now seeing that the invoice is equals to the inv, so like invoice that we are getting via the link. Yeah, so which we have stored, which is a variable that we have on top of this page, so on top here. Alright, so now we can come here and now try to purchase a few products. Now we are a new client, and this is the invoice number that we have been given. So let's just try to purchase a few onions, like 2 of them. Alright, so we are able to have the onions appear here and the price being 300. Let's try to add a few more. Let's try to add this. Maybe we have 3 of them, and now this is giving us an error here that we have undefined INV, is short for invoice. Yeah, so these errors sometimes are very important because they help us to polish our PHP and programming in general. So let's try to see how we can be able to fix that. This is because we are trying to use this variable INV and we have already like refreshed the page. You know, when you refresh the page, you sort of get the variable sort of disappears. So we need to keep track of the variable invoice even after refreshing the page. Even after refreshing the page, we still need to get hold of the invoice number. Yeah, so hope that is very clear. So what I mean is after refreshing the page, we lost track of the invoice, the variable invoice, and that's why in this case it is telling us that it is undefined. So one of the ways that we can fix this is trying to use sessions, so that when we create a new variable, we can store it in a session. That way, even after refreshing the page, we will not lose track of the variable, and we can be able to reuse it until we set it all, until a new session is created with a different invoice number or with a different value. So let's head back to the Visual Studio, and if I go on top here, if I just scroll up here, we have this session that we created here, but it seems not to be working for us. And if I may just take you back to where we are creating that session. So if I get back to the dashboard here, yeah, so when we are starting the sales here, as I had mentioned earlier, we are creating a new invoice. So when I click on this, I'm now taken to the products. Yeah, I'm now taken to the product that we have here, the page that we have called pause, and as you can see, we have this invoice number. So because now after submitting this, the page is being refreshed, we are losing track of this number here. So we want to try and use a session so that even after refreshing the page, we still keep track of this number, so that we can reuse it to get the cart items based on this invoice number, because we don't want to show all the products that have ever been purchased. We want to show all the products for a specific client and for a specific transaction. So for that's why we are trying to use a session in this post.php. So the way I can have this is, let me just get rid of this, and I'll just do the normal way. So I'll create a variable and call it INV, and here first I'll get the invoice number. So I'll come and grab this and paste it here. So now this one will help me to get the invoice number when the page is not refreshed. And when the page is refreshed, I still need to keep track of this number, but if I leave it like this, I'm going to lose the track of the number. So I can just come and say else if, and here I'll come and check whether the session is started. So first of all, I get rid of that connection. So I'll say else if is set, and here I'm going to have the session. So I'll be sort of creating a session. So variable underscore session, and the session name will be INV. Let me just have this in small letters, INV. And so now in this case I'll just come and say variable INV is equal to so it will now be equal to this session here. Just like that. So this one will work if the session is started, and that is after refreshing the page, and this one will work when we after we refresh or before we refresh the page. Yeah, so let's see that in action. So now we're going to try and purchase a product here. So let me just come and have 2 of the product 4, and as you can see now the product is added successfully and we're able to get that. Let's try to add another. Let's try to purchase 2 of these again, which is worth 260. So just 2, I add that to cart. Let's see if you're going to see it in the cart items. And as you can see, we are able to get that successfully, and also the total is working fine. So the total is 2,520, which is the sum of 2,000 plus 520. So that is working well. So I think because of time, the last thing that we are going to do in this episode is to try and try and delete this information from the database. But also remember that if you delete this, then it means that you need to have this quantity returned to stock. You need to have this quantity being returned to the stock. So for that, you can just try to create 2 SQL statements, one that will delete and another one that will update the stock. Now because the item has not been purchased, and so you need like to take it back to stock, and the system has to reflect the same. So let's just head on to the Visual Studio here. Alright, so right now we do have a very big challenge, because as I've mentioned, if you need to delete the product, you also need to update the stock, because at the end of the day the product have not been purchased, and so it needs to be returned back to the stock. So we need to write some script that will see into it that the product is deleted from the sales order, and the specific product quantities is like returned back to the store. So I'm just trying this for the first time, so for that reason I'm a bit nervous. But let's just try it and see if it will work. So the way I'm thinking of doing this is have this with the href of include. So we're going to create the script that will help us to delete this product, and we are going to have that stored in the includes folder. So includes, and we can just come and say delete delete what? Delete sales order. .php, and we also want to pass the transaction ID, because it is one that will help us to delete that specific item or product. So for that, we're going to have a question mark equal to, sorry, that is transaction underscore ID. So transaction underscore ID will be equal to so we grab the transaction ID, so echo the variable transaction underscore ID. Yeah, so and just to avoid typos, I just make it a habit of copy and pasting, just so that safe. Although I can see that, so I can just make sure that I copy that, and so that I can just avoid scrolling. I can just print that code like that. Yeah, so we have it like that. So we are just like navigating to the delete underscore sales order.php with the transaction ID being that specific product that has been selected. And so now we can head on to the includes folder here, and we create a new file and we call it delete underscore sales underscore order.php. So while we are here, the first thing that we want to do, of course, is to have the PHP opening and closing tags. So PHP, and because we don't need to have any HTML below that, we don't need to close it. Just save us a second. So the next thing that we need to do, and very important, is to require the database connection. So for that we're going to come and require the con.php. So con.php, and now that we have some database connection, we now want to get the transaction ID, because it is based on this that we can delete a specific product that the customer will select, or the user will select rather. So I will come and have an if statement, and it will be if is set. We are getting the ID via the get method. So that is what? Alright, that is get, and it is the transaction ID, transaction ID, and we want now to come and store that in a variable called transaction ID. So transaction ID is equals to, so we create a variable, oh sorry, not a variable, in fact we just come and grab this and have it there. So now we have the transaction ID of the product that the user has selected for deleting, and so now we can go ahead and delete that. So we come and have a variable called guess it light SQL is equals to, in double quotes, here we are deleting. So delete, and we are deleting from, so delete from sales order table, so sales order, and it is where the transaction ID, so transaction, so the transaction ID is equals to the transaction ID that we have on top here. Yeah, and now for the purpose of redirecting and also checking if that was successful, we are going to have the MySQL query. So that will be stored in a variable called res. So mysqli underscore query, and here we'll have the variables. This accepts two variables as usual, the con and the SQL variables. And now we can come and say that if variable res is equal true, we should now redirect. So we can come and say header, and here in quotes we'll have the location, and the location will be we get out of the includes folder, and we go to the post.php. And that is if the connection is, and that is if the delete statement went on successfully, that is if it returned true, and that's why we are matching this to true. And else if that is not the case, okay, we can just have these with success. So just like that, and so that now we can be able to differentiate when there is an error and when there is not, because we'll just be getting back to the same page. Yeah, just have it like that. So that is all the code that we need to delete the product. Let's see if that works. So here I am in the post.php page after refreshing this page, and so I just maybe want to get rid of this. So I can just come and try to click it, and even before I click it, I can notice an error at the bottom here that we have undefined transaction ID on line 234. That means we are not able to get the ID. Yeah, I think, okay, no. Yeah, I think it is because of this. We have the transaction ID being stored in this, so we don't have anything like variable transaction ID as we are trying to echo it here. So let me just try to grab it and try to come and have it here. Yeah, it's because we do have it, but we have it in a different transaction ID. So let me just have it there as such. So we try refresh the page and see if that fixes the problem. Yeah, and now when I point at this subtract, I can be able to see the transaction ID at the bottom left corner. The transaction ID is 22222, that is 222, and this one is 221, so it is working fine. So let me now try to click on it to delete. Yeah, so as you can see, the product has been removed, but I had to pause the video because the code was giving me a problem. And so one of the things that I have removed, because I always want to remain clean in my code and not just pause, to just show you that it is working, but it is not working. Like, it is working from my end, it's not working from your end. So the only thing that I have removed is the success that I had at the end of this PHP. It was not the problem. I don't know what was the problem, but the code is as we had written, so everything as we had written, and it is working very fine. So So I had to relate it once again because I could not find the issue. So that is behind the camera of the camera. So maybe the last thing that we can do here is to have the success message or the fail message, or once the delete statement is either successful or otherwise. So for that, and without wasting any time, we can just come and create a session or start a session here. So session underscore start, and now we want that if the less is equals to true, if less is equals to true, we want to create a session. So session, and the session name will be what, delete success maybe. So we can have it in quotes, and then we say delete underscore success, and this one will be equal to, so in double quotes. So inside here we are going to create a div, and now after creating the div, we're going to give it a class of is equals to alert, because it will be a message. So alert success. This should be single quotes because we already have all of these wrapped in double quotes here, and the message should be deleted successfully. Alright, so that one I think is nice, and then we should now be taken to this page here, and now else if it is not successful, we also need to echo something. So we also have the session there, and this one, it should be failed to delete successfully. Failed to delete. Yeah, and should take someone to the same page. And so now if that is the case, we should now go to the pause, and also make sure that in the pause we have the session being started at the very top. And now after that, now we want to come and echo the message here, either the fail or the success message. So that should be somewhere on top here, the cut items. So we can have it somewhere here. So session, and because we have it already on top here, I can just come and grab it, and then maybe I'll explain how it is working. So can come and grab that, and then we come now where we want to have it. It's somewhere here. So as usual, that should be within PHP tags. So PHP, and I can just come and paste it there. So basically what we are doing here is we are creating an if statement, and we are setting the condition to be if the session is set. So the session will be set when the if statement returns true or false. So if it returns true, this is the session that will be created, and the message that will be echoed is deleted successfully. Else, if the rest returns false, or if this one is not equal to true, then it is this session that will be started, and this will be the message. So if either of this session is created or started, so we now want to come and check that here, and now we want to check the session name that has been created. And so for this one, it will be the very first one here. So we should come and grab the session name. In fact, we should come and grab the whole of this for the first one here, so that we say if this session that we have here is created, so we come and replace it with this. So if this session, the delete success, is created, we should come and echo it. So we should also come and have it down here. So if it is set, what is set, this session that we've called delete success, we should echo it here. So we also don't want to have it there always, like forever. We want, when we refresh the page, we get rid of it. So we now have the unset, and we now want to unset that session that has been started. So we again can just come and paste it there. So hope that is clear. So that is now for the delete success. We should also have one for the delete failure. So in fact, this one here should be failed. Yeah, so we should also now do the same for this one. So and remember, you should have the session started in both the pages, the delete cells where the session is being created and where you are echoing the session. You should have the session being started, preferably at the very top of your code. So yeah, so you should also now below here come and duplicate this, so that now we check if the session delete failure is set. So just to avoid typos, as usual, I like copy pasting some of the code that, or the values that I'm reusing. So this one should be replaced by this. This one should be replaced by this, and this one should be replaced by this. Alright, and this one should be in parentheses or brackets. Yeah, otherwise it will give you an error. Alright, so that is done. So now we can try refresh the page and try to delete that. So here I am after refreshing the page, and I can now try to delete this one. So delete it. Alright, that was deleted successfully. At least that worked for us, but at the same time it reorganized everything. I don't know what happened. Maybe we have it in the long div or something. Okay, so let's see, where should we have that? Yeah, it's only that we have it in the long div, that's why. Yeah, otherwise everything is working as you would expect. Let me just come and try to remove it there, and in fact let's just have it within the cart items div. Yeah, so somewhere here. Okay, so we refresh that, of course. So we have that there. Let's try to add one more and try to delete it and see if that worked. Let me just add one. Okay, that was added. Let me try to remove it. Yeah, and that worked well. So deleted successfully. And if we refresh that, of course, now we should get rid of it because of the unset session. Yeah, so I know the video got quite long. We expected to do all this at 30 minutes. It was not possible, but I think we were able to cover something. I also had planned to in this episode show you how you can save the information. Otherwise that didn't work, because sometimes some codes are, or when you're coding, not everything is predictable, so sometimes it may take longer than you expect, but at the end of the day, the good thing is that you learn something, and also learn from the mistakes that you're going to make. So let me see you the next episode, where we'll be saving these products into the database, and as you can see, it will be a long list, and we'll be saving all of them at the same time. So I'll be showing you how we do that, and most probably also continue to the checkout. So we'll need to have a form where I will be like feeding the amount that the client has paid. We'll also be getting a balance if the client needs to get a balance, and also let me know if you'd like it to have a receipt at the end of it. I'm planning to have one, but it also depends on whether you'd like me to have it with a receipt or just to edit at the checkout point. Yeah, so otherwise thanks for watching my video until the end. If the video was helpful, kindly make sure that you hit that like button, share it with your friends, and if you're watching my videos and you have not subscribed, then I would like request you to just subscribe, because that is the only way that you can support me and my channel. And also, if you have any questions, you have any comments, you have anything, you can use the comment section below. I always read and reply to every comment that I get. Of course, if it is positive, and even if it has some critics, I will also try to read and work on it. So otherwise, having said that, see you in the next one.